On the morning of September 11, 2001, the United States faced an unprecedented attack. 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airplanes, 2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers, another plane hit the Pentagon, the 4th plane crashed in Pennsylvania. This day would become known as 9/11. The attacks were sudden and shocking. People around the world watched in horror. The scale of destruction was unimaginable. The Twin Towers collapsed within 2 hours. The Pentagon was scarred by flames. The immediate aftermath saw chaos and confusion. Thousands tried to escape the burning buildings. Many lost their lives in the attempt. The sight of the towers falling became iconic. The attacks were a direct assault on American soil. They shook the nation to its core. The sense of security was shattered. The world would never be the same again. 4 planes were hijacked that day. American Airlines Flight 11 was the first to be taken over. At 8:46 a.m., it crashed into the North Tower. The second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, struck the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. United Airlines Flight 93 went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It is believed the hijackers intended to target the White House or the Capitol. The targets were not random but symbolic. The death toll from the 9/11 attacks was staggering. Nearly 3,000 people were killed. This included passengers on the planes, workers in the buildings, and first responders. The loss was felt deeply across the nation and the world. Among the victims were many personal stories. One such story is that of Todd Beamer, a passenger on Flight 93. He was one of the passengers who attempted to retake the plane from the hijackers. His last recorded words, "Let's roll," became a symbol of bravery. Another tragic story is that of the firefighters and police officers who rushed into the burning towers. Many of them lost their lives trying to save others. Their courage and selflessness were inspiring. They are remembered as heroes. The victims came from diverse backgrounds. They were of different ages, nationalities, and professions. Each had their own hopes and dreams. The attacks left thousands of families grieving. The personal losses were immeasurable. Section 4. Identities and motivations of the attackers. The attackers were identified as members of Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. They had a radical Islamist ideology. They aimed to fight Western oppression of Muslims. The hijackers were mostly from Saudi Arabia. They trained at American flight schools. Their mission was meticulously planned. The attacks were a statement of defiance. Section 5. Immediate U.S. response. The U.S. government responded swiftly to the attacks. President George W. Bush addressed the nation that evening. He declared a war on terror. The goal was to eliminate terrorist groups around the world. The response included military action, intelligence operations, and new security measures. One of the first actions was the invasion of Afghanistan. The Taliban regime, which harbored Al-Qaeda, was targeted. U.S. forces, along with allies, aimed to dismantle the terrorist network. This marked the beginning of a long and complex conflict. Domestically, security was heightened. Airports implemented stricter screening processes. The Department of Homeland Security was established. The Patriot Act was passed, expanding surveillance capabilities. The aim was to prevent future attacks. The immediate response was marked by a sense of unity. Americans came together in the face of tragedy. There was a surge of patriotism. Flags were flown and memorials were held. The nation mourned but also resolved to fight back. Section 6. Long-term U.S. response. The long-term response to 9/11 had far-reaching implications. The war on terror expanded to include Iraq. In 2003, the U.S. led an invasion of Iraq, citing weapons of mass destruction and links to terrorism. This decision remains controversial. The conflict in Afghanistan continued for 2 decades. It involved significant loss of life and resources. The U.S. aimed to build a stable government and prevent the return of terrorist groups. The withdrawal of U.S. troops in 2021 marked the end of this chapter. Security measures remained stringent. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, was created. Air travel changed forever. Intelligence agencies increased their efforts to track and prevent terrorist activities. Privacy concerns arose due to expanded surveillance. Internationally, alliances were strengthened. NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, stating that an attack on one member was an attack on all. Cooperation between nations in counterterrorism efforts increased. The global fight against terrorism became a priority. Section 7. Lasting impact and current relevance. The impact of the 9/11 attacks is still felt today. The events reshaped global politics and security. The war on terror continues in various forms. Terrorist threats persist, though the nature of the threat has evolved. The memory of 9/11 is kept alive through memorials and annual ceremonies. The National September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York serves as a place of reflection. It honors the victims and educates future generations about the attacks. The attacks also influenced culture and media. Films, books, and documentaries have been made about 9/11. These works explore the events, the heroism, and the aftermath. They ensure that the stories of that day are not forgotten. The current relevance of 9/11 lies in its lessons. It highlighted the importance of vigilance and resilience. It showed the need for global cooperation against terrorism. As the world faces new challenges, the legacy of 9/11 serves as a reminder of the strength and unity that can emerge from tragedy.